100 by NOPD and over 60 by Louisiana State Police. With that, I personally myself, when I worked that area almost 13 years ago, commissioned a pickpocket gun task force. With that, I taught body language and sumpake, which is Latin for whites of the eyes, which is brought on by stress that none of us can control. If you feel threatened, automatically your eyes, you see the whites of the eyes. That's what that means. Also, we knew the bad people and the bad people knew us. Even though we worked in plain clothes, if they're carrying a weapon, their body language, they would move that weapon with their elbow, subconsciously.
Thank you, sir. We have a 3-minute rule, sorry. I do not, Rep. Walters had, I think, just gave you some additional time, probably. Rep. Walters.
Thank you, Chair Villarreal. That's right, Sheriff. Can you continue this story? Because this is pretty interesting, and I think we all need to hear what you're saying.
Thank you. This past Mardi Gras, I'd like to first let me circle back. At the time, I commissioned a number of, I think it was 10 officers from NOPD. We had shootings every night on the parade routes, particularly in the area of the CBD, which was the Canal Street area. We refer to that area as the neutral ground where the buses run and the streetcars today. This past year, we had not one shooting on the parade route. And that's due to the assistance of various agencies, partnering agencies, such as Tangipahoa, Natchitoches Parish, Jefferson Parish, Tangipahoa, Lafourche Parish deputies, just to name a few. And they've worked under the auspices of Sheriff Hudson for obvious reasons. So I'm going to close very quickly and say I pray that this committee strongly consider making this area in New Orleans a gun-free zone. Any questions? I'll try to feel invested.
Rep. Ventrella.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you, sir, for your testimony. Are you aware that this state has become what we're known as a constitutional carry state?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Are you concerned in any way that this bill, now that how Representative Knox has made it to specifically apply to concealed carry permit holders can carry, but others can't. Are you concerned that this bill can increase incarceration rates in your city and arrests, and additionally pretextual stops and targeting? Are you concerned in any way with that?
We're always concerned about that. Yes, ma'am. We are.
Yeah. So, I mean, and especially for travelers, let's just say somebody's coming in from out of town, somebody from Shreveport comes to New Orleans. Are you concerned in any way with these, with a law-abiding citizen carrying their weapon outside of these very specific boundaries that they are well within their right to do so now based off of the governor signing of constitutional carry, and they come and they cross the boundary of this street? Are you concerned in any way that they may be targeted or confused? Are you concerned about that?
Yes, I am. Very much so. Remember, we process, Orleans Parish Sheriff's, or we process all arrests that are made in Orleans Parish. So yes, I am concerned about that.
And do you think that this change would allow a targeting of specific members of the community in any way? Because now, if the gun that was legal 5 inches over now becomes illegal, are you concerned in any way that that may result in targeting of specific individuals?
I can best answer that. The bad guys all know each other, and they know each other carry guns, and that doesn't stop them from shooting at each other.
And when you say bad guys, do you mean people that potentially have a criminal record?
People that have criminal intent, not just a record, the intent to do something.
Right, but do you think that those people are going to follow the law regardless?
They don't follow the law now.
Right. So thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Rep. Ventrella. Rep. Fontenot is going to take the chair momentarily. We are finish with those wishing to speak in support. We do have 38 cards in support, not wishing to speak. We have red cards in opposition, wishing to speak. Mr. Everett, Bodon, Devon McVey, and Barrett Kendrick. If y'all want to come take the table, please.
All right, whoever would like to go first, just give your name for the record.
Hey, good afternoon. Again, my name is Everett Bodon. I'm a vice president of the Louisiana Shooting Association, and attorney here in Baton Rouge and Gazelle handgun instructor. I may echo some of my previous testimony on one of the other bills that creating the expanded definition of a firearm-free zone makes it very difficult to instruct people who are trying to follow the law as to the specifics of what the law entails. Reading these definitions in this bill of major entertainment district, this is an inadministrable definition that is subject to constant change. If a stadium is built somewhere, for example, that would cause a municipality to suddenly be included in this definition, and that it's very difficult for people to actually stay apprised of. Secondly, the existing definitions, for example, the downtown development district, reads much like a legal description of property that I read it earlier, and I have a hard time visualizing where exactly that begins and ends. And as we had some earlier testimony, most of the city of New Orleans is already an existing firearm-free zone. So I don't really understand why making slightly more of it a firearm-free zone is going to significantly change the problem that is already still a problem with the existing ability to enforce this law in most places. As the representative from the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office just said, the bad guys don't follow the law. So again, this will only enjoin the law-abiding citizens who are attempting to follow the law as closely as possible from being able to do so. I don't believe the city of New Orleans should be treated differently from the rest of the state. I don't believe the citizens of New Orleans who live in these areas should be abridged of their constitutional rights that we just worked so hard to pass. And just to address some of the points raised by the New Orleans Police Department, the map that you showed earlier, Representative Fontenot, he testified that he's not familiar with that map. Well, anyone who is carrying a concealed handgun lawfully has to be familiar with that map. We have to know that map. If law enforcement can't even stay apprised of the map as is, I don't understand why we should have the duty that we already have, that we manage, and that people will have to stay apprised of with the current constitutional carry language, which is not even in effect yet, and yet the problem that we're complaining of still exists. Lastly, I have a problem with the statement that there's no reasonable suspicion to make stops with the constitutional carry law. We've had concealed handgun permits since the 1990s, so people can already have a concealed handgun lawfully in many places in New Orleans. So just seeing somebody possibly carrying a gun should not already rise to the level of reasonable suspicion unless there is some sort of ulterior motive in doing so. And lastly, the constitutional carry statute has a duty to inform law enforcement. If law enforcement approaches anyone in their official capacity, that person is obligated to inform that officer that they're carrying, and if they're carrying unlawfully, the officer can determine that as a part of that stop.
Thank you, Mr. Bodon. Rep. Walters for a question.
Thank you, Acting Chair. Excuse me, sir, are you a resident of New Orleans?
Not anymore. I grew up in the New Orleans area.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next speaker.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Barrett Kendrick, and I sit on the board of the Louisiana Shooting Association. You started, Representative Knox, with playing a video of, a family member of one of the victims, right? And I don't want anyone to confuse, me standing up for the rights of somebody means that I'm somehow, pro-violence, I should say, pro-violence. We're on the same team with all that, right? We all want to make sure that we're preventing violence. And I also want to recognize that the city of New Orleans has worked very hard to be able to bring down some of that crime over the past couple of years, right? There was a horrible spike, and I believe in 2022 it has come down. But the fact is, that it is still there. I was just looking at this map, and I tried to only have some of the violent crimes on the map that I pulled this morning from New Orleans website, and I see things in this area like sexual assault and rape and homicide and aggravated battery and numerous other crimes that have continued to take place over the past year. And even the shooting that took place outside of the Republic bar here a week ago. It was already illegal, for the shooter to carry the firearm if that person did not have a concealed carry permit under current law. It was illegal for the person to point the gun at other people. It was illegal for the person to shoot the firearm inside of the city limits of New Orleans unless it was self-defense. It was illegal for the person to shoot others, right? And there were already all of these crimes in existence. And as pointed out, there are numerous firearm-free zones that exist throughout this area and throughout the city of New Orleans. And highly likely, the same individual had to traverse one of those firearm-free zones to be able to get to the point that they were, outside of the Republic that night. And I just don't know that this creating or expanding more of the firearm-free zones is going to do what we all want. We all want the violent crime to go down. But I do think it's important that we stand up for the rights of the individuals that want to be able to carry guns there. As pointed out, there's 15 or so million people that visit the city of New Orleans every single year. I visit the city of New Orleans. I do live on the North Shore, but I've visited the city of New Orleans for many, many years, and I've done so less over the past several years because of the concern of the violent crime there. And I don't want to take away individual right to be able to carry a firearm inside of those areas for the purpose of personal defense. Thank you, but I'm available if you have questions.
You have no questions, Mr. Kendrick. If we can get some other witnesses to the table. Representative Knox, you mind letting us get in us three so we can expedite the process? Three witnesses at a time? You mind? So I can get three witnesses?
Sure.
Devon McVey, Chris Patron, and Dan Zelenka. All right, sir, you can go ahead and begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Devon McVey. I'm the Louisiana State Director for American Action Fund. I'm speaking today in strong opposition to this bill. This very committee, just 2 months ago, voted to pass constitutional carry. And before this bill has even been put into place, we're now trying to create gun ban zones. Designating areas as gun-free zones do nothing to deter criminals from doing illegal activity. If it did, then let's designate I-10 as a car-free zone so we can stop DUIs. Gun ban zones violate the Second Amendment, and they are dangerous for law-abiding citizens. All this does is attract criminals to attack people who they know are defenseless because of the government. According to the Crime Prevention Research Center, 94% of mass public shootings happen in gun-free zones. 94%. My wife should not have to be a professional boxer in order to protect herself in the French Quarter. I urge you to vote against this bill and respect the nearly 2 million Louisiana citizens who are law-abiding gun owners in the state.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Patron?
Good afternoon. I'm here again, Chris Petron with the Firearm Professionals of Louisiana. The amendment that Representative Knox made to this bill actually gave me pause for consideration. Well, that was a good move, saying that the permit people, because I'm a permit carrier, I'm a CHP, the permit people, carriers can carry in the area. But it still has one problem left with that, and that is that this still makes a patchwork of law that people are not going to be informed about. Unsuspecting people are going to be found violating the law. They're not going to know that this is the case. Not if they're from Gonzales, maybe. But the other thing is that Representative Fana, you made an important point about the maps of the gun-free zones and all the crimes committed in them. Making a gun-free zone is a law that will affect law-abiding citizens, not criminals. The criminals are going to go do it anyway. So passing another law is not what you need. What we really need is enforcement and prosecutorial enforcement. So that's my point.
Thank you, Ms. Petrone. And just for the record, I think the amendment added the exception in 1495.2, and the current statute doesn't have any exceptions. I think it may be in the wrong section of the law. But Mr. Zelenka?
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Dan Zelenkin. I'm the president of the Louisiana Shooting Association. Much of what I said concerning House Bill 750 applies here. It's the same type of gun-free zone. It fits under the same statutory scheme. The definition of major entertainment district in this case is extremely broad, and I don't find it to be well defined. Even if we limit it to the French Quarter, the Downtown Development District, and the Convention Center areas, it's a huge swath of the city. This would become a zone where law-abiding citizens would be completely defenseless. And looking at these areas on a map, I find that they're areas that I think are quite dangerous already. I do appreciate the amendment and what it attempts to do. Like Representative Fontenot said, I don't think it fulfills that attempt. I think that the prohibition in 1495.2 is probably still effective against concealed carry permit holders. The other problem with the amendment is it does not provide a carve-out for permit holders from other states. Now, we have reciprocity with 38 other states. Those people have permits under those state laws. They come to Louisiana thinking that their permit is valid because the state police website says it's valid. And they go into New Orleans and suddenly discover that it's not illegal carrying of a firearm, okay, which is $14.95, which is a misdemeanor with a maximum of 6 months and a $500 fine. Oh, no, it's a 5-year felony. And I think that we're going to have problems with that if we pass this bill. I think we'll have problems with people who are carrying, law-abiding citizens carrying under constitutional carry. I think we're going to have problems with people with permits from out of state. And I can't see anything about this bill that is good for law-abiding citizens. The other thing I wanted to mention, I mean, we've talked about murders and whatnot. When I was a young lawyer, there was an associate, I believe at the firm of Nesser, King and LeBlanc, who was robbed downtown in a parking lot, and they stuffed him in the trunk of his car, and they took him out to Almanastra Avenue and shot him in the head and burned his car up, okay? That zone, or that parking lot, is in this gun-free zone. So that person would, today, or at least as of July 4th, would have the right to have his firearm, okay? Under this law, he would not.
Thank you, Mr. Zelenka. Representative Walters for a question.
Thank you, Acting Chair. Mr. Zelenka, what do you find ambiguous about the definition for a major entertainment district? And it reads, a major entertainment district means the public spaces within an area that traditionally hosts more than 15 million people annually, contains a venue for sports entertainment with a capacity for more than 75,000 people, a convention center with more than 1 million square feet, and it, goes on to the second page, because now you're not attacking the author, but you're also attacking the staff who helped the author prepare this bill. So what about this definition?
Well,
is
I'm not
ambiguous?
attacking anybody. I'm an attorney. I read this, okay? So a person, to comply with the law, needs to know how many visitors show up in a particular city. A person needs to know, they probably know that there is a sports venue, but needs to know the capacity of the stadium. The person then needs to know if there is a exhibition center of more than 1 million square feet. But it goes on, okay? They also need to know if there's a casino or not, and whether or not it's land-based. And then finally, it says, this shall include the following areas, all of which are set out by statute. It doesn't say it only includes those areas. And I sat down with a map and with the literal property descriptions of what the French Quarter is, the Downtown Development District, and the Convention Center. And when you sit down, I mean, I did real estate work. I had trouble figuring out what the Convention Center area was. I noticed that the Downtown Development Center it's the whole CBD. I mean, when I was practicing law, it would have been where I traveled every day, you know. And then the French Quarter is fairly easy to figure out because, you know, it stops at Esplanade, it stops on, I guess, Rampart Canal and the river, okay? That's easy one to figure out. But, I mean, does it include parade routes? Because that's an entertainment zone, you know? Does it include them only during Mardi Gras? Does it include them 100, you know, all the year round? I just found that the definition was, if you're going to charge somebody with a felony, you need to tell me exactly where I can't carry. That map that Representative Fontenot showed, okay, that's a requirement of the law that map be in the conveyance office of all cities, actually all parishes and cities, okay?
Okay. Thank you for clarifying, Mrs. Lincoln.
Okay.
All right, there are no other questions for the witnesses. Last two witnesses to the table is going to be Kelby Senor, National Rifle Association, and there is no name, but Louisiana Citizens Advocacy Group.
Chris Alexander.
Someone else filled it out, thanks.
Mr. Alexander, you can go first.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Acting Chairman. This is Chris Alexander, Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group. I'm not going to repeat any points that were made earlier. I just want to remind the committee of what you probably already know. We just got finished passing SB 1 in the state of Louisiana, and which establishes the fundamental constitutional right for permitless constitutional concealed carry in Louisiana. So permitless concealed carry is on the same constitutional footing now in Louisiana as permitted carry. Both are fundamental constitutional rights. And that is for the purpose of providing people an opportunity to defend themselves in public. So even though there was an effort to amend the bill, obviously, and allow for concealed carry permit in these otherwise prohibited areas, it discriminates against permitless, law-abiding concealed carriers. I can't tell you the number of people who have contacted us who are permitless concealed carriers who say, Chris, we don't want to be on a government list. We don't want to have to go seek the government's permission to conceal carry. And there's no requirement in the Second Amendment that requires that we go get permission from the government or pay the government to be able to conceal carry. We don't want to be on a government list. And it's not the government's right to know how many guns we have, whether we own a gun, or where we go with our gun. It's none of the government's business. So if I had my way, I would repeal every law in the state of Louisiana that has any gun-free zone in it for law-abiding citizens. And on a practical level, I have a hard time understanding why in the most dangerous city in the state of Louisiana, law-abiding people would be prohibited from permitless concealed carrying in order to protect their family. With all due respect for the NOPD, and I'm sure that he's a very good chief, and the sheriff, the Second Amendment doesn't exist so the government can decide when and where it's applicable. The Second Amendment exists so the government can secure that right for law-abiding citizens. And I think our founding fathers would be absolutely shocked even at the idea that a law-abiding citizen would have to go seek the government's permission to conceal carry or ever have to have a permit. So that's our position on the bill, and we strongly oppose it. Thank you.
Mr. Alexander. I don't see any questions in the queue. Kelby Senor with NRA. Mr. Senor.
Thank you, Chair Lady Billio. My name is Kelby Senor. I'm the National Rifle Association State Director for Louisiana. Our members and NRA strongly oppose House Bill 498 for similar reasons I brought up on House Bill 750, but a lot of my points have already been taken, but some of the things I would like to bring up are that this creates a gun-free zone in the French Quarter, and I do appreciate Representative Knox's amendment to allow permit holders to carry. However, Louisiana is not unique in having cities or neighborhoods where people gather, and in certain areas they are allowed to openly drink, such as on Bourbon Street. Further, many of these locations are in constitutional carry states, and they do not discriminate against those exercising their right to carry, whether they are permitted to do so or not. Some of those examples are in Gainesville, Florida, we have the Arts, Culture, and Entertainment District. There's no restriction on permitless concealed carriers. It's a constitutional carry state. We have in Tampa, Florida, you have the Tampa River Walk. There's no restriction on any constitutional carry there either. Savannah, Georgia, you have River Street. It's just like Bourbon Street. No restrictions on permitless concealed carriers. Kansas City, Missouri, you have the Power and Light District. It is also a constitutional carry state. There is no restriction on permitless concealed carriers. Additionally, New Orleans is unfortunately one of the most dangerous cities in America, and I know that crime has decreased there. However, we have places like Chicago, strictest gun laws in the nation, and there's still crime rampant there. This is going to do nothing but restrict law-abiding citizens' ability to defend themselves, and that is why we strongly oppose this bill. On top of that, it's a restriction defined by a person or an object's location in relation to an imaginary line, an arbitrary boundary, and it does not account for a person's intent. So with that being said, I would ask that you respectfully oppose House Bill 498. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Senor. We don't have any questions in the queue. We have 22 cards in opposition not wishing to speak that we will make a part of the record. Representative Cox, if you want to close on, Representative Knox, if you want to close on your bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Councilmember Helena Moreno would like to say a word.
Thank you. I really think that there were some good points made, particularly on the reciprocity of the permits that was talked about. Obviously, some good comments made about making sure that the amendment that we put on, that was, done correctly. I'll also say this, that we've been working with Senator Kirk Talbot on the Senate side, who has a bill now similar to this. What his bill does is also requires a permit to carry concealed in the French Quarter. Obviously, this area is bigger. But because of what I've just discussed and talking with Deputy Chief Gernon, we're wondering if we could have an opportunity to get with Senator Talbot and kind of work through some of these particular issues and work through the reciprocity issue with the concealed carry permit and try to get things in better shape. And obviously, I've been in this body before, but if it's possible to potentially voluntarily defer this so we can have the opportunity to work with Senator Talbot a little bit closer on this, obviously that's the motion that you would make, Representative, but I think that could be potentially helpful.
Thank you, Councilwoman Moreno. That is certainly a motion that the author can make if he chooses. So Representative Knox, what are your wishes?
That would be my wish, Madam Chair. Councilmember Helena Moreno and I have discussed this, and I'm all about making this bill in the best posture possible. The amendment that's currently on there shows my willingness to try to make that happen. I've listened to all the comments that have been made. I'm certain I probably won't appease most of them, but I do want to get their concerns and have them reflected so that this bill can be in the best posture.
Thank you. We have a motion. I believe we had a motion on the table by Representative Moore to report the instrument as amended. I understand. Let's take care of that first. Representative Moore has withdrawn her motion. So now we have a motion by Representative Knox to voluntarily defer. Cox and Knox.
They say we look alike. The same thing happens in municipal.
We have that motion to voluntarily defer. Do we have any objections to voluntarily deferring? Seeing and hearing none, that instrument will be voluntarily deferred. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee.
While we wait for some authors to come over, if we'll go ahead